happy to try and find something clever to say to them as a director that they may have never heard before. I know in my life when directors have tried to do that with me, and you sort of think, are you trying something? What is going on there? But what I did want to do, and I did feel very sincere about, was offering them a completely different type of a working environment that might just startle them into feeling a different way, feeling that sense of quiet and that sense of intimacy. And I did some specific things to help with that. So our crew were really on side, and they were brilliantly supportive of what I was trying to achieve. We didn't have any overhead boom microphones, which made a huge difference, because aside from anything else, when you've got young children and there's a big black pole waving above their heads, they're just going to go like that. So I could never have that happen. But also as an actor myself, my only one thing that I do find really distracting is overhead booms, because it doesn't matter how skilled that technician is, you can still see them, and it does continually move around. So everyone was radio mic'd, including the children. We had lots of hidden microphones everywhere. So it meant that just in terms of actual physical crew bodies in the room, there were much, much less people. And when I could, in the more intimate scenes, only involving 2 actors at a time, we were able to lock off the cameras and set the shot, and everybody would walk away. So there'd be no camera operators standing there at all, nothing, just freestanding, rolling cameras, really giving those actors the space to just be together and to have those quite difficult conversations that some of the actors have to have. But it was amazing. The whole experience was amazing. I never wanted it to end. Everyone wanted it to continue, and I've honestly loved every single second of it. It's been an incredible experience for me.
So this is your directorial debut, and I really fucking did it. You really did. And not only that, but you also took on something that a lot of directors tell me that they're afraid to do, which is directing yourself. And so what were some of the specific challenges of that? I mean, I know, this is your first time doing it, so you just went all in, but how was that experience?
I mean, I think I was so focused on everybody else and making sure that all the actors felt completely heard and supported and had the space to work in their very individual ways. They all had a really different process, and I was thrilled to discover and learn just how differently they operated, and what they needed from me was completely different. Tim needed something that was different to what Andrea needed, for example, and certainly very different to Tony. And so when it came to the first scene, and actually I took the hit, so directing on day 1, and on the schedule was the big waiting room scene with Tim Spall and Johnny Flynn, and I looked at my first AD and I said, I can't do it to them. They will just shit themselves. I can't do it. I said, I'll take the hit, just put in something for me. So the first thing I shot was me on the phone to Toni Collette, telling her, I think you should come and bring the orange squash. Great. So I took the hit, and actually it was okay, because I was so prepared, and I knew that I just had to give myself lots of choices when I got into the edit. So I just had to keep experimenting. Let me just try something else. Let me just back myself up, try something else. And I was able to get relatively efficient at it. However, that doesn't mean I actually knew that what I had done was any good. So when I got into the edit, I was like, oh my God, why did I pull that face? That is so weird. Why wouldn't someone have told me that? Okay, we're not going to use that bit. So, and I was able to be very ruthless about making sure that all the performances had their place. But that was certainly the kind of wild card component that I think, you can never possibly know, I think, what that's going to feel like to be directing yourself. And luckily I was in a space with actors who are all so lovely. I can't tell you how wonderful they all were, such beautiful, special, kind people. And I was definitely in a room with people whom I could turn to and say, did you think that was any good, that take I just did? Because if I could always, I'm happy to do it again. So I could check in with them here and there as well. Yeah.
I want to go back to the beginning a little bit and just talk about the script, which was written by your son Joe Anders, who, when I checked, is I think just 21 years old.
My son is only 21, and he started writing this when he was only 19, and he's always written. He's always been a very talented writer. It was his passion at school, and when he had finished school, he really wasn't sure what to do next in his life, and he was slightly grappling, I think, with the idea of declaring that he, first of all, maybe wanted to go into acting. He is actually also an actor, but he was very passionate about writing, and he said, but I need to learn it, I want to learn it properly, and he applied to a really prestigious course at the National Film and Television School in London. He'd written a short film and he got a place on this very heavily coveted course, and he was like, oh my, they've accepted me, oh my God. And when he was there, he was encouraged by a really fantastic tutor she said, Joe, just write what you know. And he's like 19 years old, I've gone through COVID, etc. What else is there in my life? And the one thing that has been very significant for Joe was the loss of his grandmother, my mum. She passed away in 2017, and he was a teenager at the time. And his memories of that time are of this large family all coming together and actually giving my mother quite an extraordinary passing. But just the geographical possibility of us all being in the one place was extraordinary. So he took that as a backdrop, this big family all coming together, and then he invented a story out of that. And he did it very steadily, and he handed it to me when he had almost finished it, and he said, I've written this script, and it's probably not very good, but you can read it if you want. Will you read it? And I was like, yes, darling, I'd absolutely love to read it, knowing that he definitely would have written something interesting. But what I didn't know was that he was very clearly a screenwriter, and he had written something that was so real and so sophisticated and graceful and warm. That was the thing. He had created a story not about someone dying, but about a family. And it really lifts you up. He had done this very clever thing of somehow making a story about such a seismic loss and giving it to an audience and somehow making us laugh as well as cry. I mean, that's a very hard thing, even for a really sophisticated, experienced screenwriter to do. And I've read, as you would imagine, many hundreds of screenplays in my career. And I turned to him and I said, well, we are gonna make this into a film. And he's like, what? No, Mum, no, Mum. That's not a thing. No, it's not, no, don't do that thing. And I was like, what thing? We really are. I said, finish it, and then we're gonna talk about it some more. And he developed it some more, and obviously went through various different drafts, as any writer would do. He was brilliant at taking notes and adapting to that. And then when it was ready, I said to him, okay, we are going to find a home for it. And amazingly, Netflix just went, yes. They are so good, I will say, actually. Netflix is supporting emerging talent and first-time heads of department as well as directors, etc. And it went from there. And during that process, I started to talk to the actors. So Andrea Riseborough read the same version that still had 20 pages to go, and she said yes, even on reading that version. And at that point, I wasn't going to direct it. I was going to produce it, and I was going to play Julia. And as the process got more and more exciting and intense for me, I just felt we couldn't let it go. And I said to Joe, I said, look, we could just start going out to directors right now, and we could make a wonderful list of extraordinary people we admire. I said, but as soon as we do that, it's not ours anymore. We are giving it to them, which is exactly the right thing. That's what happens. And I said to him, I really, really think I would like to direct it, and I feel like I could. And it just went from there. And all of our wish list actors, all said yes. And it was just extraordinary. And the process of casting the children was utterly wonderful, because of course that was just playing and playing and playing. And all the children actually, because they range in age from, well, a baby, the 2 5-year-olds, all the way up to Sydney, who is 16. But I thought, well, how am I supposed to explain to 2 5-year-olds, one of whom has special needs? How am I supposed to say, oh, this is Ella, this is Flora, she plays Ella, this is James, he plays Alfred. I thought, I can't, that's too many names. So I said to all of the children, we're just going to call each other in our character names. And that's what they did. And they were only ever in character all the time, which meant that I could secretly roll cameras when they were just playing and being, and they were basically always in character.
Method acting for children.
Well, they just loved it, and they just thought that was that person's name. And it was actually so strange at the end when Tybalt rapped, and he turned to our crew and he said, I'm actually called Elias. And they were all like, no, you're Tybalt, you're Tibby. It was really very sweet, and they called all of us in our character names as well. I was Mummy Kate, and that was also brilliant because Benji, whose name was amazingly Ben, and it was great because he would call me Mummy Kate on camera, and in the edit I could very easily just snip out the Kate part, and he was calling me Mummy, and that was rather wonderful. And he brought so much magic to us because he's just this, oh my gosh, that child is so beautiful. His eyes are extraordinary, and he was just learning Makaton, which is the Down syndrome signing, and his parents were learning it with him. And as soon as I saw them doing it, I had never seen, has anyone here ever seen Makaton signing? I had never seen it. It's so beautiful, it's extraordinary. And I thought, we have to have that in our film. So we had a Makaton expert who was there every day to be a communicator for him. But then at the end, I don't know if you noticed, but all the children in Away in the Manger, they're actually signing in Makaton, and they were all so proud to learn it, and it was just gorgeous. So the whole experience was incredibly supportive. All these children were fully supported by the actors, and in turn we were all really taking care of everybody, and there was me being as fearless a leader as I could possibly be. Yeah. You don't know how an audience is going to respond. I tell you, it's quite a different thing being a director, because when you're an actor, you have all these other things and people you can hide behind. When you're a director, you're fucked. Do you know? You can't. So I'm really grateful, you've no idea.
Really found so moving about this film is, obviously, I feel like everybody of course goes through something like this at some point in their lives, but we don't really prepare or talk about it, and this film doesn't shy away from that, and it sits with what's coming, and we don't kind of fade to black or just skip the parts that are hard. Were there times where on set it became quite emotional for everybody? And if so, how did you manage that?
I mean, yes. In our rehearsal process, which was one very solid week of shared time, all of us actors, actually, we rehearsed as much as we could in the house where I was staying. I don't live in London, we filmed in London. I had this really nice rental house, and so I would just cook and we would chat, and so it just felt very open, and I felt I needed to really start building the trust amongst all of us from a very early point. And so those very private stories about personal loss were shared. And I think when you open up a conversation and feel that you can let yourself be vulnerable enough to express your own personal story, something quite bonding takes place. So that happened very immediately, and what it did mean was that when there were some of the trickier days, even for me, very hard days, we did all have each other. And we also had the crew. It was a small crew of people who I have largely known for a very long time and worked with as an actor on many different projects. Our cinematographer, Alvin Kutcher, I've worked with 3 times as an actress, and quite intensely. He did the Steve Jobs film, and he also did the Regime, the 6-part show I did for HBO. So I spent 6 solid months with him on the Regime, and all his camera crew. So those people were present, and they also had their stories. So for everybody, not just the actors, there were moments where Max, our focus puller, would have to wipe his eyes and get recomposed for the next take. And for me, the scenes with Tim and Helen, because of course when I lost my mother, I didn't witness any of the conversations between my parents in those final moments. They were private moments that they shared. And suddenly I felt like, I felt like I was there. And so I would actually just kind of hide behind Max, our focus puller, in the corner, and almost just sort of quietly sob on his back whilst he was working. And I would gently try and tenderly direct from the corner and keep at a distance, because I never wanted to disrupt these very sacred little spaces that the actors would sometimes create for themselves. You know, you don't want to sort of break that spell. But yes, there were definitely days when it was tough. However, we had Tony Collette, who brings the levity. and I think that was something that Joe did with the script so brilliantly, is that I myself have a real dislike of false sentiment, you know, and I think, you know, when I can sniff it as an actor, I'm like, oh, okay, no, don't go near that, okay, let's not let it be syrupy or saccharine. I really don't like it. So I loved the fact that in my son's script, it never fell into that. The words just didn't take us in those directions at all. And I was ruthless with myself when we were shooting, never to sit on the emotion, which is why, for example, you know, after that wonderful scene when Connor reads his mother the poem, right the next moment you cut to Tony Collette playing on a bloody ocarina whistle, looking like a carnival, and you can't help but laugh. And that's the other thing too, is that when you do lose a loved one in the way that this family does, there actually are oddly humorous moments that happen, that get forgotten about very quickly. And I love the fact that we were able to bring all of that into the story and to really keep those things alive, because we didn't want it to feel like a film about death and grief and loss. We wanted it to feel like a story, which I really think it does, about a family who are pulled closer together because of the love that consummate matriarch had for all of them. And you just know that they're going to be okay. And there's something really, I think, important about that message and those conversations. You know, just make sure you have them. They're hard conversations to have, they really are. But it is important to talk a bit about those things, because I think, you know, we're not very good, I think, at talking about grief and loss at all. And so I do love the fact that we were able to do some of that with this film.
When you talk about, you know, not being saccharine, or that's such a hallmark of this film. You know, it definitely pulls back from leaning into, you know, what could become kind of a soup of sadness. There's a moment where June says to Julia, but not in that overbearing way you do sometimes, darling. It's such a perfect moment for me, because it's so loving. It's like everything that she's going to lose when her mother passes away is in that moment.
Yeah.
Someone that knows you like that and loves you anyway.
Yeah. But isn't that what mothers do? I mean, I know I get things wrong as a mother all the time, and I'm sure I've said things that I probably could have phrased differently, or just something. But it's that level of honesty that parents sometimes give their children at whatever age they are, you know, that is really rather wonderful. And the thing about, you know, don't like yellow, darling, it really doesn't suit you. It's one of my favourite pieces in the whole film. But we didn't want for June to feel like, we didn't want for her to feel perfect, you know, because nobody is. And because we wanted to tell a story that is embedded in truth and feels very real, we wanted it to resonate with people and hopefully help people to see something of themselves and their own experiences in the telling of the story. And we wanted it to feel warm. You know, so many hospital spaces are very brightly lit and stark. And so it mattered to me a great deal that our actual set didn't feel like that. Partly because those wonderful palliative care, end-of-life carers and professionals, they are so warm and they're so patient, and they will sit at someone's bedside and they will sit and talk to the relatives for as long as that person needs for them to. And so to honour those people as well we wanted to emulate that sense of warmth that they so freely give, and certainly in my country, for very, very little money on the National Health Service. And so Ravenscourt Park, but it mattered. It really mattered a lot, because I know that when my own mother was dying, those individuals kept us all going, not just her. But Ravenscourt Park Hospital, which was the template for our set, it's an old 1920s derelict hospital in southwest London. And it has this beautiful old green linoleum floor, that kind of linoleum that's so old that it's gone shiny, you know? And you don't really see linoleum quite like that anymore. And so we took that and recreated it in our set. So the hospital corridor, the main corridor and June's room was a built-in studio. So we were able to control the space a bit more and get Helen Mirren in and out in 16 days. And then the waiting room and the corridor when they were walking to the doctor's office, for example, that was part of the real hospital. And the floor where they performed the nativity, that was on the very top floor of that hospital. And it was an extraordinary, very, very beautiful space that also didn't feel like London, and that mattered a lot because it's not set in London, it's set in a place that is about 3 hours north of London. And so that sense of home counties mattered a lot. London hospitals are really very crowded, hospital rooms are really impossibly tiny. And so we wanted it to feel as though this wasn't happening in a frantic city. It was happening somewhere that was very familiar to everyone. They go to this hospital all the time, she's had this cancer for a long time. And so they would have known that waiting room space, they would know those corridors, they would know the way to the vending machines, you know. It had to feel like that as well, it had to feel familiar as well as warm.
I know that the music we just heard as the credits roll was very important to you. Can you tell the story of how that came to be?
So that incredible song, Mother's Song, it's Gregory Porter. And so when Joe had first written the script, and I'm saying to him, we're making this into a film, and he's telling me that I'm insane. As a sort of almost like pumping him up exercise, I said, okay, come on, we are going to sit down and we are going to write a wish list of who we would like to play these roles, who will shoot the film, you know, who would be head of hair and makeup, for example. So we started making this list. And then he turned to me and he said, God, could you imagine if we could, like, I don't know, like get Gregory Porter to do a song? I was like, let's write that down. So I put that on the list as well. This is back in 2023. And I had actually almost, not forgotten, but parked that part of our conversation. And then it was about 3 months ago, and I suddenly remembered, oh my God, Gregory Porter, we had that Gregory Porter conversation. And I phoned Joe, and I said, fuck it, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna write him an impassioned email telling him how much we appreciate his work, and also how important his voice is to us as a family, because we really do listen to his work a lot. And for me, I've actually listened to his work as a vocal artist, needing to find inspiration as an actor. I've listened to him on set. And I just wrote him this very long email, told him how the film had come together, explained to him what it was, and said to him, I'm sure you're very, very busy, but if you were interested in watching the film with a view to maybe collaborating and doing something, we would be eternally grateful, and if not, no worries. And we got this almost immediate response, Gregory would love to see the film. We were like, oh my God, what are we doing? How are we doing all this? And he saw the film, and immediately he said, I would love to write something. And that's the beautiful song that he wrote. And he came to London, and we recorded it at Abbey Road, and Joe and myself were both there. And we had so many pinch me moments, you can't imagine. It was very, very special. And another thing I loved, just on the subject of music, was I really thought to myself, well, if I'm a first-time director, my son is a first-time writer, we have to have opportunities for other first-time department heads. It mattered to me so much. So our composer, all the music that you hear in the film, this was a first-time composer who was my children's music teacher. He's taught, his name is Ben Harlan. of my children music, and he's just wonderful. And he himself became a father very young. He has 3 grandchildren, and so he worked in education because he had a family to raise. Now all of his children have left home, and 3 years ago he stopped being a teacher and he enrolled in Trinity College of Music in London and was in the same class as one of his students. And he did music composition, and I said to him, "Come on, you can do this." And he did it. And I'm so proud of him because I think his work is so subtle. I think you feel the music, but it doesn't fill your ear to the extent that it distracts you. It really, I think, supports the narrative in a very, very beautiful way. And we had a first-time production designer and a first-time costume designer, so I was very, very proud of that. I just love to lift people up. It matters to me so much, and I had to start somewhere. We all, every single one of you sitting here, we had to start somewhere, and it just takes someone saying, "You can do this," to make you believe that you can, and not only someone saying, "You can do this, but we're going to do this together." It completely transforms the entire working experience, and that's what I wanted for this film, because it was just too much of a great opportunity to miss and pass up, giving those people that chance. I'm so happy that we did it.
Wow, that's incredible. It's so touching. I could honestly talk to you all night about this film and this process. I hope you're going to direct some more things. Please tell us.
It so much, and I just didn't want it to end, and I walked away from the final day of our sound mix on the 12th of October, which was my daughter's 25th birthday, and I just didn't want it to finish. I was like, "Can you just play me the sound of the like, hey, we've done it, it's done." But it was wonderful. I absolutely really do hope that I get the opportunity to do it again.
Well, give it up for Kate Winslet.